Y'all in here? Thank you for organizing everybody, and everybody in the room, thank you for all you're doing to help us build better connectivity and critical infrastructure for the world. Really appreciate it. And I'm Jase, and this talk is bananas, so see some really wonderful, familiar faces in the room, some leaders in broadband and technology and policy. And this is a talk, y'all, that hopefully at minimum isn't boring. The key performance indicator is number of people asleep at the end of it, so I'm trying for a 0. If you could, please help me out, and let's do a quick wiggle, because we're gonna get the blood flowing on this one, okay? And it's for a good reason, though. It's for a good cause. It's because y'all are leaders in the space of the critical infrastructure on which the whole of our civilization wholly depends, and it's very vulnerable in ways that we need to address as a nation and as a world. Okay, so this is, how many of folks are from out of country? Okay, so a good number of us are from out of country. This is a talk that's about some of America's own vulnerabilities. You probably have a different set of circumstances in your nation, but we also ask for your help to help us to understand how to strengthen and improve our critical infrastructure, because we're in the age of AI, y'all, and it's exciting. Like, who here has heard of AI? Awesome. I see 3 hands. That's great. So we have so many promises for AI. We have precision manufacturing. We have the future of healthcare. We have the remote classrooms of the future. We have all these wonderful things that are promised by AI and that are very possible if the AI works for most people in most places most of the time. And that's a big if, okay? How many have read the White House Action Plan for AI? Right? And it's framed as like, let's win this race, y'all. Let's win against China, and let's win and lead the world in AI, which, yeah, maybe we lead the world in AI in the models right now, and that's great. But there's a real challenge that we need the folks in this room that are world experts in this specific subject to really think about and to help others understand, and that is that the physical layer is the foundation of AI. Right? And if your White House plan is really smart and it's full of lots of great ideas for how you're going to lead the world in AI, and it doesn't mention the physical layer once, it doesn't mention edge infrastructure once, it doesn't reference internet exchange points, it doesn't even mention broadband, it's like building a giant, beautiful mansion without a foundation. So this is a frank talk about a vulnerability of the United States of America. I would even frame it as America's Achilles heel. Okay, and it's something that we as a nation know but don't think enough about. We don't deal with it. It's something that folks that don't want America to remain the world's primary superpower in the future, that they want to study it. And you all know something that most people in the space of AI and the people that are buying all the promises of AI don't fully understand. This talk, if nothing else, is to help y'all to help them understand. Okay, that the entire thing depends on the physical layer, and there are things like in the physical layer, you know this, there are things like floods, right? There are things like fires, right? There's tornadoes, right? There's stuff that can tear up fiber huts and take out whole regions for weeks if they're not resilient, right? There's even the 1859, the Carrington event, right? Mike was there, like he saw it. It took down all of the telegraphs, y'all, and that at the time was like a huge pain in the ass. But if you did that same type of thing today, what would happen to our civilization? Because most of what we've built to date, powering our worlds, the global connectivity that we've co-created, the super consciousness that we're together co-creating, it all depends on a physical layer that is not ready for that kind of thing, right? It doesn't need to be a fancy solar flare, the sun getting mad. It doesn't need to be a squirrel, right? A squirrel chewing through fiber is the number one cause of these local access issues, right? Or it can be something a little more aggressive, like the Metcalf substation being shot up in 2013 with AK-47s and fiber cuts, right? Probably to prove a point, because they'd done it a couple of hours later during near peak load, like it could have been rolling blackouts that took down Silicon Valley, maybe California. Not making this stuff up, like this stuff is happening, and it's happening more and more. There's more and more acts of vandalism against broadband and critical infrastructure networks. There's even, in China, for decades, a program called the Assassin's Maces. Who's heard of the Assassin's Maces, the Xiaoshujian? Tens of billions of dollars, public record, nothing here is classified. There's a whole series of weapons that were designed with one express purpose, and it was to when the moment of she arrives to take down America and to cripple it at its Achilles heel at the critical infrastructure, right? And the ones that keep us up at night, the first one is this is not your granddaddy's EMP. We used to think, okay, you need a big nuke in space to have an electromagnetic pulse big enough to take down critical infrastructure, which is now false, right? You can attach refrigerator-sized objects to commercially available drones and fly them very near unshielded data centers in a race today, what we call the cloud, right? And if you read their doctrines, you'll start to come across the concepts like the omnipresent battlefield, the concept of blended domains. Their point is that there is zero separation between the defense of America and the civilian life of America. So all bets are on. And if you read the China Dream, who's read the China Dream? 2049, by 2049, they want to be the world's only superpower, right? We wish them luck, but we want to also be ready for when that moment comes, okay? And the good news is that we're investing over $1 trillion into critical infrastructure by 2030 through Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and other already approved, already appropriated and authorized acts of Congress. Is it going to be resilient is the question for y'all, right? And so these are 5 key principles that we hope that y'all will think about. And then there's an ask at the end for everybody in the room to please help with, okay? The first is that, you understand this in this room, but too few people understand it, and that is that AI fundamentally depends on the physical layer as its critical foundation, right? The boring, the poles, the cabinets, the huts, the underground, right? The space lasers, all these things together in concert are what make AI possible or not, right? And that's something that you have to help people think about. Y'all study this stuff, but let's ask a real question. Let's ask a hard question, right? We say we want to lead the AI race. We say we want to remain the world's sole superpower. What happens, though, if there's an AI-dependent hot contest that breaks out tomorrow? And we have really great AI, but it's built on a vulnerable physical layer. But we have China, on the other hand, that spent decades building some of the world's best and most brilliant critical infrastructure in a way that's resilient. And they have pretty freaking good AI. Who's going to win in that hot contest? Second is multimodal is a must. I see some wonderful folks from the telecom space and connectivity in the room. And y'all know this, there's this sort of religiosity to fiber versus wireless versus satellite. And that's false. That's a false trichotomy. Is that a thing? You know what I'm talking about. It's no longer the case that it's or, it's and. You have to have all of the modes working in concert in a way that promotes each other and mutually force multiplies each other, and then if needed, it acts as a form of resilient backup if things don't work in the way that they're supposed to in the area, right? And then another principle is to proliferate the internet exchange points. How many people have worked on internet exchange points? I see a few hands. Do you know how many we have in the United States? We have under 200. Under 200 internet exchange points. And there are 14 states in the United States that have 0 internet exchange points. They're one fiber snip away from digital darkness. Right, and you know the difference, right? If there's something that comes along that knocks out the networks that our society now wholly depends upon, and you have one side of town that has serial single routes with no redundancy, they're going to be out for however long it takes to rebuild that infrastructure. But if there's resilience built into the system and redundancy is part of that resilience, you can definitely get back up and running faster. You're going to be ready for those types of things. Another principle is digital twin for the win. Has anybody worked on digital twins for critical infrastructure? The modeling of assets, right? So awesome stuff. That's some of the stuff that we do at Ready. We have an incredible team. A quick shout out to the Ready team, amazing crew of folks. If y'all are in this space and y'all are wanting to work on things that are helping to improve critical infrastructure, we'd love to talk to you about your next chapter. We build some cool tools that help with things like geospatial asset management engine, or GAME for short, to help do things like wargaming and see where the critical infrastructure is and isn't ready for the road ahead. So lastly is you need an edge, right? How many of y'all work on the edge infrastructure? A few good hands. Edge is where it's at, right? When you get edge to work, the number of applications that are now becoming latency intolerant suggests that the future, all applications are latency intolerant, right? And you're no longer in a space where you can do this thing where you have your long line transmission and you're sending stuff thousands of miles away for compute and store. You need to bring the compute and store to where the people are. and where the data is being generated and consumed. The world of the hyperscaler that we now live in is a very fragile world. It's a many eggs and few baskets problem. It's also a problem that affects the performance, and we need to be very cognizant of the shift that I know that y'all are already thinking about in your research and in your work, and it's that we're moving from a world of centralized production to fixed points of consumption into a world of distributed production and variable points of consumption where we're all moving around, we have our electric vehicles, we're doing all this stuff, right? But the problem is that we've put at least 25% of America's compute and store resources within 5 miles of this building, right? And so when you have a situation like, say, a hospital doing a remote outpatient recovery that's 10 miles down the road and somewhere in Mississippi, and it has to travel all the way up to a hyperscaler and all the way back, we let the telecom people convince us that speed is download and that was the marketing sort of advantage, and then we let them convince us to ignore latency. And y'all think about latency, right? You know the difference is like if you have the ability to do compute and store and to handle some of these tasks, like AI inference as an example, like you really close to 100 miles of the application, that's going to be a much, much more robust application and better performance, right? So the ask is this, y'all, to get ready for what's coming, to help your teams and the world that you live in, the future of that world, to get ready. Like how many of y'all have been tracking with the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, the BEAD Act? Most of y'all, right? Yeah, we've seen it go through some wild stuff. We've watched for 4 years of state directors and NTIA doing as much as they can to help make sure that the money goes to highest and best use. We, the people, agreed to invest that money way back when in IJA, and it's now under this sort of program and administration that's like saying we're going to take it and save as much of it as possible. For what is the question, okay? But what we do know is that it's created a tale of two BEADs. If you've studied the BEAD Act, you know that it was divided into what we called deployment, as like get the folks connected, get the community anchor institutions like John led the pioneer and champion of over there. And then we had the administration fund, but then you have this other bucket of money that's becoming larger and larger as they save more and more money on not doing like as much fiber and deep infrastructure with the program. The question is, where is that second BEAD going to go? And it's something that Al David in Senator Wicker's office is thinking about is like the BEAD supporting funds. It's not non-deployment as we called it in the beginning, but the question is like, is it going to go back to the Treasury where it's going to do absolutely zero good for anybody? It's not going to make a single bit of difference to anyone in that case. It's going to defy Congress. It's going to make the administration look very bad among the rural people that were counting on them, right? Another possibility is it going to go to more hyperscalers? Or more appropriately, is it going to go to the bottom line of the companies that develop the hyperscalers? Right, that's a very real possible outcome. If you saw the draft CR for the BEAD policy update, it did include like a small note about AI infrastructure as a use case. If you read the White House's plan, you hear the references to hyperscalers, the so-called big beautiful buildings, right, that tend to be very bad neighbors and tend to over-concentrate these compute and store resources in ways that don't work. Or is there a third path where it can go towards resilient critical infrastructure where it can do a hell of a lot of good in hardening the networks and making them better equipped and ready for whatever road is ahead? Whether it's a state actor that really doesn't like America, or it's the sun gets mad at us, or it's just a bunch of angry squirrels, it's ready for that world, and it's ready for a world of AI and prosperity. So ask one is like, Senator Wicker is a leader in this space, now the chair of Armed Services in the Senate, right? Former chair of Commerce, so he understands how commerce and the NTIA works. Right, he was architect of the Broadband Data Act. I know a lot of y'all know him personally. He's a big champion of rural connectivity and, of course, the guy that led the rip and replace movement. Right. The ask is to contact his office. As experts in this space, please, he is one person that can definitely move the needle on the conversation with the folks that are making decisions right now on where that extra $16 to $26 billion goes. So if you could, please, it's contact al-david_saab, S-A-A-B, at wicker.senate.gov. And if you can, like, mention the things that you're interested in, mention your research, mention your perspective. But if you're looking for some suggested points, there's a few. That's what he asked. We had this whole thing where we thought Senator Wicker had like an AI staffer, but it's a guy named Al. He's awesome. He's very smart. He might actually be AI, but he presents as human. Yeah. No, it's a great question. We also have a paper, if you're interested in this topic, and you all write really great papers like ready.net/RCI. Go and download it, read it. Better yet, if you would, if this is inspiring or interesting to you, next year, TPRC 54, write something about it, right? So, from your angle and your perspective. And if I'm wrong about this stuff, say I'm wrong, right? That's good. Just help us understand this world that we're living in, because the whole of our civilization wholly depends on these systems working, and y'all are some of the best and the brightest in the space, and your minds are very needed in this moment. So I will shut up now. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah.